nerves. Better shake your booties for black girl nerves.
Thank you, Krysten, for your time. I appreciate it greatly.
Thank you.
This is such a great series for so many different reasons. There's wonderfully talented performers in it, but behind the helm, talented women writing a series, talented woman directing the first 4 episodes of the series. Before we talk about the show itself, what are you most proud of with a project like this, to see all of these wonderful women come together to bring a show like this to life?
It was really exciting, and I think everybody felt that on set as well. You know, creatively, this is just a candy opportunity. You know, you have the world building of the cult and the colony, and the young teens in this small town, kind of like where I'm from, and then you have the monsters, and you have this badass female monster hunter, and then all of the characters and the crew in front of the camera and behind. The inclusiveness and the representation and the LGBTQ is front and center of the story. It's just like such an exciting thing to be a part of, and we all felt that. We also took any opportunity we could find to flip something on its head, a stereotype that you might, something as simple as people are in a kitchen making food. Let's not just put women in there. Let's throw some dudes in there. Or like there are people taking care of toddlers. Okay, let's put men and women. Like let's always check ourselves to see like where your mind goes. And so that was a really exciting opportunity, and I think people really felt that.
Audiences love, there's something very magical about just stories that center around woods and doors to other places, and whether they be good or bad on the other side of that door. We'll find out during the course of the show. Why do you think those types of stories are so appealing to humanity? This simple ability to just open a door and poof, like it's been with Chronicles of Narnia and all these different types of stories in history.
Yeah, I think people like escapism. I think people like heightened realities. I think people like to get lost in big stories. I think when you have a supernatural element, you get to have super issues or super feelings. Like everything is a little bit bigger, and because it sets it on an elevated plane. So I'm not an expert on it. I don't know, but I know that's the kind of thing that's what drew me to the project, and that's what's kind of drawn me to past projects that also have a supernatural or heightened element. I think that's probably what it is. People want to like escape, right?
Absolutely. I was talking to Misha, Sofia, and Stefanie earlier, wonderfully talented young people. When you all would get together to begin the day's work, or the other cast members as well, did you all have a mantra? Do you have a way that you started the day to make sure you accomplished the goals? How did you all come together on shooting days to start the energy off right?
Yeah, so I have a really like kind of fun rock and roll, like silly energy on set, and I love to make sure everyone feels good. As an actor, I know like I've always felt my most confident to give the performance I wanted to give when I felt supported and encouraged to lean in, and I had some say over how I looked. So I always wanted to make sure that the actors and the crew, that the actors performing felt good. I wanted to build them up so they could just focus on what they needed to do. I wanted to make sure they felt confident in their hair and their makeup and their wardrobe, and let them have a real voice and be co-creators and co-collaborators in their characters.
Mm-hmm. The Girl in the Woods has brilliant source material to draw upon, not only with Door of the Woods, but the follow-up Girls in the Woods. Is it easier to build out a world when you have such strong source material? Is it more of a pressure thing to live up? How do you view the strength of this source material in carving out this world?
Yeah, so I think for me, this was a mythology built out from a short film. So it wasn't something really popular that people know about. I mean, they do within like the YouTube fan base. But for me, this was like a total standalone thing. I know it absolutely helps networks and helps you sell a project when you can show something is proven, or show something, for all intents and purposes exists. It's kind of like a great thing to have. It's also just great to know what the mythology is. If you have a question like, monsters aren't real. So when we're like, would you be able to see the monster then? Well, it's like, well, in real life, you can't see monsters at all. Like, let's check the mythology. Let's check the rule book. So it's a great thing to have. The more material, the more prep you have, the freer you are to go do your thing.
Sometimes those monsters are hiding in plain sight right in front of us.
Exactly.
And lastly, obviously at the helm as director, but as a performer, if you could insert yourself into the show as one character, which character? All the characters are marvelous, but if you could pick one and swap with them for a day and take off the director's hat, who would you want to swap with?
Honestly, I love all of the characters. I think, the Carrie character, and I love all the stunts and those like great fighting sequences she got to do. I loved doing that on Jessica Jones. So there was definitely moments where I was like, okay, let me practice the moves with you. But I also really loved me some Misha and that comic relief that comes with their character. I love a funny line. I love a punchline. I love getting a laugh. So I had a lot of fun directing Misha as Nolan. And then Tasha's clothes and attitude and funny wit and humor were all really fun. So there were pieces of all of the characters that I felt like a real connection to.
Well, I love that. That is wonderful. Congratulations again. Exciting series, some cool content for the young folks and for anybody actually to watch it, but particularly them so they can see themselves or versions of themselves in something else, which is very, very critical. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate talking to you.
Thank you. So great to meet you. Have a great day.
You too. Take care. Thank you, all of you, for your time. Sorry, my dog just started wallowing.
That's fine.
So sorry about that. Thank you so much for your time. This is such a cool series. I wish there were more shows like this when I was in my young adult years, because I love dark and spooky and anything that of this genre. Beginning with you, Sofia, or actually beginning with you, Stefanie, we have a young person who's been part of this collective that in a sense has been doing a service for people in what the group was guarding. What would make her leave that type of environment? What's that journey going to be like for her this season, walking away from that and starting something new in a sense?
Well, I can't quite say what makes her leave. It's quite a big, crazy thing that happens, but she did grow up in this colony, which was really intense. She didn't grow up with her parents raising her. She grew up learning how to fight and every day kind of putting herself in life or death situations. And before we meet her, she's been in isolation for a few years by herself, guarding this door, and which is a life or death situation because I think only one person has ever survived doing it. So that's kind of where we first meet her. Is coming from that. And there's plenty of reasons that someone would want to leave a situation like that if they've never seen the outside world and they only have random stories about what that's like. And then when she meets Tasha and Nolan, she's kind of like, I think totally enlightened to how beautiful life can be.
Mm-hmm. Sofia, with your character, Tasha, Stefanie's character has been in isolation all this time, and now she's going to have to refine what it's like to be amongst people, especially people who are different from the people she left. How does their relationship best serve each other? How do they help each other the most?
I mean, they completely fill each other's gaps. Tasha is, she's almost the opposite of Carrie. When they first meet each other. But I think that's what really draws the both of them together. And towards the end of the season, you really see that they've taught each other a lot. As Stefanie, you were saying, Carrie kind of sees the good in people and that people just can be good in general and that life can be beautiful. And Tasha kind of steps up and she's always had this loyalty to her friends, but she really realizes that she's got to do her part, and the stakes get very high. So she has a realization of, all right, I gotta get my shit together and save my friends.
Okay, all grown folks. Misha, for you, for Nolan, what I loved about your character is, in addition to these other things that are happening, there's a lot of self-discovery and growth and community and all these different things happening at once. What do you like what do you like most about portraying Nolan and bringing that character to life?
I think it's the marriage of the two. It's the crazy stakes of the show, the relationships with Stefanie and Sofia's characters of having to team up and fight evil essentially, while also dealing with some pretty intense, identity stuff, gender stuff, things that a lot of teenagers actually go through and are, really difficult to navigate. So being able to marry both was a fun challenge, having to have the crazy stakes of like monsters are coming to get me, but also like, dealing with some gender identity stuff.
Mm-hmm. It's refreshing to see, because like you mentioned, a lot of young people are currently experiencing that journey, just like your character Nolan. Have you considered, what do you think about audience reaching out? Are you a person that likes to engage in social media, and how do you anticipate, and I'll ask each of you, navigating that road once the show airs, because this is giving a great dynamic of a variety of types of young people that we don't get to see reflected in shows enough. Misha, if you'd like to follow up, and then Sofia and Stefanie.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I think social media can be an incredible tool for both activism and advocacy, but I think that it's most effective when it's organic, and whether it's audience members reaching out because they feel moved or touched by the show, or even if it's just especially, young queer people feeling seen and feeling like they see a version of themselves on screen. That's everything. That's what representation is at the end of the day. It's this opportunity for young people to see themselves reflected in a story, and even if it's fictional, even if it's fantastical, hopefully their mental health improves and their self-image improves because they're seeing a version of themselves on screen.
For sure. And Sofia?
Yeah, Misha, adding on to that, it's very organic. Our characters are very much ourselves, and even the relationships we have to each other, we kind of wanted to, and I hope we did well, and I feel like we did well, normalized everything that we're going through. Yes, there's teen romance. Yes, there's gender identity, and there's all of these things, but it's just a part of who each of them are. We're trying to normalize it and really have the show be about, this band of kids coming together, figuring their shit out and fighting monsters. And I hope that just through the show alone, people feel seen, but I would totally love to follow up on social media and really reach out and hear the response that people have to the show. Cause that's really my favorite part, is getting to see how people react to it and relate to it, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. I'm so sorry, Stefanie. They are giving me the hook. I am so sorry. I just love the show. You guys are so talented, and it's such a cool and interesting show. Thank you for your time, and have a wonderful, wonderful season.
Thank you. Bye.
Better shake your booties for black girl nerves. Better shake your booties for black girl nerves.